Boy, I've got the honor and the pleasure of introducing Debbie Kirkwood. In conversation with Debbie prior to today's presentation, she mentioned, and I quote, "I think aspects of how Tennis Canada approached the problem of developing world-class athletes, given our unique conditions, is food for thought." And that got us going. So Debbie is a performance consultant. As the former director of high performance for Tennis Canada, she was involved in every aspect of Canada's player development program. Debbie led the team responsible for development of the organization's LTAD model. The high performance pathway from sport entry to podium performance and everything in between. She also assisted with the development of Canada's national and regional training center programs, a certified level 4 coach in Canada. Debbie is a former provincial coach in Saskatchewan, a national coach, international team captain with the women's junior team and the Junior Fed Cup, Pan Am Games leader 1999 and 2015, and Olympic Games team leader in 2016. Debbie is a member of the ITF's Coaches Commission and the ITF's Player Panel, appointed coach and for women. And she's a two-time winner of Tennis Canada's Excellent Award for Youth Development. Extremely well deserved. Coaches, welcome Debbie Kirkwood.
Thank you, Wayne, for the kind introduction, and thank you everybody for making the time to attend all these presentations today. The presentation is going to be on thinking outside of the box, a key factor for systemic sporting success. As coaches, as you know, while much of athlete development takes place on the court or in the gyms or on the field of play, what I'm going to talk to you about a little bit is some of the factors that contributed to Canada's success in tennis that took place off court and many years ahead of really balls being struck. And so today what I want to do is I want to share 3 examples of the impact that some of this out of the box thinking had on tennis. And hopefully these examples will be something that you will be able to use with your programs. So
Debbie, if I could just interrupt, can I get you to share your screen so we can get your presentation up? If you hover over on the screen, you should see there we go. Perfect.
Okay, you can see it this time?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you.
All right. Okay, so the overview of the presentation is going to be as follows. I'm going to provide you with 2 examples that took place in 2004 and 2005, where we actually took a bit of a business approach to high performance development. And then I'll go and share an example that took place right after, as we were looking to build our unique approach to high performance development, our pathway. And then finally, I'll share with you how data can be used because it can help to determine whether or not you're actually driving on the right road. And then finally, I'll give you a little example of how we put it all together with our LTAD model, which we had in place from 2008 and beyond, and then goes through the whole pathway from basically entry level to either pro tennis or to college, because again, developing all athletes is really important, and then share a bit of a conclusion. So as Wayne indicated, the ultimate goal of high performance or development really is to be able to maximize performance, whatever level we work at. And as Wayne indicated, I've been lucky to really work the whole gamut from the club level right up to the national level. And so a lot of factors come into effect, have to come together in order for success to happen. And really this process starts with talented and driven athletes, with dedicated families, and of course, with you, dedicated coaches. So combined with the above, given our brief time today, as a conversation starter, I propose that really thinking outside of the box is a critical factor for system development. And why? Well, first, for all of us that work in sport, it's because player development at any level is both complicated and highly integrated. And second, it's really impossible to kind of predict what doesn't currently exist. The champion of the future will not look like or play like the champion of the past or of today. So how do we go about working and figuring out a way of how we're going to move athletes through the pathway? And so how did tennis use some out-of-the-box thinking to help move it basically from a country that really wasn't achieving internationally to be a force to be reckoned with? And so the first example really is we basically ended up utilizing a thesis long before it became an international recognized model. So for us, this happened about 16 years ago when tennis was looking to decide its go-forward high-performance plan. While attending an international conference, we stumbled onto a presentation of a PhD student who was presenting her thesis, which was the 9 sport policies leading to international sporting success, or SPLIS, what you see on the screen. And basically her research was, what were the factors that allowed nations to win Olympic medals? And so when we saw this thesis, this model, we were impressed and we went, wow. And so what we wanted to do is we arranged to meet her and then basically ask if she would share her thesis with us because we thought it could be helpful in what we were doing. And so when we looked at this, we thought, well, if it's possible that maybe these 9 factors for international success, these 9 pillars were a factor for world-class Olympic medals, could this be something that we could take and apply to the sport of tennis and to see what our gaps were against this very high international benchmark? And so basically what you see on the screen is a really rough analysis of what this application showed. And as you can see, we had a lot of work to do. There were a lot of areas which were underdeveloped, and as a result, were areas that we needed to fill those gaps. But the red isn't the issue. You know, what's important about this takeaway is if you're aspiring really to be the best in the world or the best in your province or the best in your city, what you need to know are what are the factors that will impact on that, and where do you stand as an organization? And that's a key lesson no matter what level that you're working at. And the other takeaway is not to be afraid to maybe take a leap on an idea long before it becomes an established model. So I think tennis was one of the first sports to really take a look and integrate these 9 SPLIS factors before it actually became the recognized international model that it is today. The second example is really how we utilize the new strategic playbook. And so basically, among the many competencies of our board of directors 16 years ago, we were really lucky to have one of the world's eminent business strategists in Roger Martin. And basically, the strategy choice cascade, which you see on the screen, was a business model concept. And basically, what we ended up doing was taking a model that is usually applied to business, but instead we decided to apply it to high performance development. And so as you can see, it starts at the top. And so first and foremost, we needed to ask ourselves, what was going to be our winning aspiration? And so basically we decided that we wanted to win Davis Cup, Fed Cup, Grand Slams, and Olympic medals. And as we heard earlier, you know, it's good to think big. And so for us, this was a pretty audacious set of objectives, given, as you'll see, we didn't have players that were ranked inside the top 200 in the world. And so that was the first thing that we decided. The second thing on this choice cascade, which was important, is to decide where were we going to play. So going back to 2005, 2006, basically we were known as a doubles nation, a little bit with Daniel Nestor and Sebastian Leroux that won gold medals. Grant Connell was #1 in the world. But in order to achieve the goal above, we needed to focus on singles. And so that was a strategic change that we made. And the other big change that we made is a decision to work on world-class under 14 development. And so basically what that meant is we were going to shift not only financial resources, but we were going to shift our coaching resources to this level. So normally in sport, everybody likes to work at the highest levels of the pyramid. What we did was do something that was counterintuitive at the time, is we were shifting some world-class coaches to work here. And basically the model that the analogy that I could put this to is a little bit like school. So we've decided to move coaches to work in grades 5 to 8 with the hopes that by laying the academic competencies that you would receive in those grades, it would set you up to be able to have children that would be able to accept the higher and more challenging competencies that happen from grade 9 to grade 12, and then set them in place so that they are able to achieve either at the NCAAs or at the pro level. So this shift was really unique at the time, anywhere globally. And then the last question that we really looked at was, how will we win? And so we decided that 2 ways. 1, that we would open national and regional training centers. And 2, that we would be adopting, as you'll see, a bit of a hybrid model of development. So the national centers, going back to the school analogy, would be akin to opening world-class high schools and then a series of regional world-class junior high schools right across the country. We did this because we felt the resources, human and financial, that Canada has to deal with is completely different than our major competitors like Spain and the United States. So it was real important that we came up with a model that we could implement on our own. We eventually implemented all those 5 questions on the Cascade. But the beautiful thing about the Cascade is that it can be applied at any level. So from the level that we're talking about here, but you could bring it down to, you know, entry-level baseball and say, you know, what is my team's winning aspiration this year? How am I going to do that? Where am I going to play? And then how am I going to achieve that? So it's a really interesting cascade, a really interesting model that I thought I'd share. The next thing that we did is combining with the information above is when we were trying to design our unique approach to the player development pathway. Again, we took another bit of a business model in that we wanted to strategically integrate basically 2 opposing philosophies. And by strategically integrating, I mean we avoided adopting or copying this model or that model of player development. So instead of choosing either a federation or system option of player development or a private sector model of player development, instead, what we did is we adopted a uniquely hybrid approach. And so that proved to be very impactful. The second thing that we did is instead of continuing to rely simply on the development philosophy of Canada, what we decided to do is to integrate the experiences of all our newly hired international coaches. And so by doing that, we brought in the backgrounds of 5 different countries: United States, France, Canada, Australia, and Italy. And so by bringing in a diversity of backgrounds, there's lots of positives to that. But then at the same time, it also provides some challenges. And along with diversifying the experiences that we brought in, what we wanted to do was also include entry-level coaches all the way up to a coach that coached someone that was a Wimbledon champion. So by combining all of this, it basically was kind of a bold decision, because as you can appreciate, trying to incorporate all these various philosophies and backgrounds into trying to come up with a path that was going to be one that would be moving the country forward to gain a consensus, if you will, was not easy. But in the end, ultimately, it proved to be extremely effective. The final decision that we took involved the use of data. And this was important for a variety of reasons. First, to excel at the highest levels, it's important to know if you're basically driving on the right road and if you're actually going to get to the destination that you want to get to, like a GPS. And so, as I indicated earlier in the presentation, Canada was basically producing top 200 players, never mind top 20, top 10, or Grand Slam champions. So basically, we were kind of a nothing country. So based on what we were seeing and feeling as national coaches, we decided about 20 years ago to undertake a rate of progression exercise and analysis. And so, for example, this same process was undertaken by the United States, but 17 years later. So in effect, we ended up getting a bit of a competitive advantage on all our competition. So what we were seeing as national coaches and feeling back in 2000 actually ended up being what the data showed. So when you basically look on the screen, Canada was driving on the bronze road, or the top 200 road. And so when we eventually shared this information with our sporting community, with everyone, we only shared the data from the bronze road to the gold road, which is the road above that you see. The reason being, at the time, considering we were only producing top 200 players, the thought of getting to drive on the gold road was thought to be impossible in itself. But the real challenge that we had as a country was that Grand Slam champions were driving on the gold road, and more importantly, they were driving on the dark gray road, which was the platinum road. And so we had to adjust many things in order to ensure that we made that shift, that we would be able to move our athletes and get them on to the right road. And so, as you can see, the lines, the dotted lines of light blue and light green are actually two of our current athletes. And you can see that they are driving above that platinum road. The other thing that's important, and it goes back to the discussion that we had about really taking our development down to the under 14 level and the importance of it, you can see how fast the road is between starting on the tour and becoming a top 10 player in the world. It basically is 5 years, from 16 to 21 or 22 years of age. So if that's the case, then taking your development down, establishing some of the things that we did with our coaches, with our training centers, becomes very, very important. And so 20 years later, 15 years later, not only did we have one athlete travel that road, but we actually had 4 players that traveled on that platinum road. So Milos, Jeannie, Dennis, and Bianca. And we actually have one more athlete that's tracking to get there in the near future. So how does this all come together? So as you can see on the screen, basically this is tennis's LTAD model. And it's basically a bit of a unique model. As you can see with the red, what we decided to do was to really put a focus on the entry level aspects of our development pathway. So stages 2, stages 3, stages 4. We decided to put world-class facilities in place with our regional and national training centers, and then also ensure that we dedicated some of our best coaches to working with athletes at this stage in order to try to ensure that as you move up the ladder, that we would be able to produce some world-class athletes or NCAA players. So this model is really a holistic model, as was discussed a little bit earlier. The idea is to really try to ensure not only we're developing high performance players, but should that not be the case, the ability to be able to develop athletes that can excel at the NCAA level. So in conclusion, basically that 15-year window, Canada came pretty close to achieving some of those objectives that we set. In 2019, we ended up having our Davis Cup team reach the finals of the Davis Cup. We had a female athlete win a Grand Slam title. And at this year's US Open, we had 3 men following that event be ranked in the top 20 in the world, and 1 woman. So basically in that time frame, we went from no players inside of the top 200 to 4 players that were ranked inside the top 20 in the world. So as a conclusion, basically thinking out of the box, taking some ideas, some concepts that may not be standard practice could be helpful in helping you to develop your program. Trying to take maybe a business-like approach to your jobs as developing coaches who are involved in businesses or developing athletes could be a unique strategy. Know your best practices and how that factors into your ability to create success. The use of data, know if you're driving on the right road, and then if not, you know, how to navigate to get back on the road to achieve where it is that you want to go. And then at the end of the day, try to put it all together in a way that's absolutely unique to you. So there's no sort of cookie cutters for systemic success. You want to be able to try to find a plan that will work for you. And then if you can identify some of these unique ingredients for your sport, your workplace, and sprinkle it with a little bit of luck, you'll have a chance to really achieve systemic success, no matter what level that you're working at. So thank you.
Debbie, what a powerful message. The message about coaches, the top coaches coming down in the system is an LTAD principle that we look to when it comes to coach development as well. Get those coaches working with the emerging athletes and become an emerging coach yourself. I mean, that's such a strong, strong message. We, as you know, in Canada, we do have the foundation of long-term development, not only for athletes, but also for our coaches. So the message for coaches here is make yourself relevant, understand where you are and the role that you play in athlete development. Make that connection when we talk about taking athletes to that next level.
Yeah, I mean, I just gave a presentation for an international tennis conference, and really the subject was on women's tennis, but the importance that it's not high performance development or nothing. It can be high performance development and retention. And I think one of the nice things that we've done in Canada is we've been able to produce some really great professional players. But the NCAA now has maybe 300 or 400 kids that are competing, at college, getting a degree in the United States. And so, that's important. But every rung, and you can see that the entry-level coach, I think in every sport, the people that lay the foundation, no different than entry-level teachers, the work that kindergarten to grade 8 teachers do, set people on the right path for their life down the road.
Excellent message, Debbie. I want to thank you on behalf of all the coaches here and our team at TIMEOUT 2020. Great message. Thank you very much for sharing.
Yeah,
We
thank
really
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you for
Debbie.
having me.
Thanks.